making money isn't optional. There's cows to pay for, there's dirt to pay for, there's equipment to pay for, people to pay for. There's a long list of bills. The first 2 calves I ever got, I got identical care, identical feed, identical treatment, and one grew at a completely different rate from the other. So when it came time to sell them, I was getting a completely different paycheck on calf A versus calf B, even though I'd put the same money, the same time, the same effort in them. I sold those and rolled that into a few beef cows, got into commercial beef cows. That then evolved into artificial insemination, then embryo transfer, which that eventually transitioned into adding some additional breeds, including the Akushi or Red Wagyu. From starting with those 2 bucket calves all the way up to today, we run about 400 head. And this is what I do all day, every day, and this is what feeds my family. When you're sticking embryos into cows, and embryos in some cases that are worth thousands of dollars, your cost per service is exceptionally high. Conception rate's extremely important. That's the difference between that cow being worth $1,500 on a lot of years and $6,000 if she's carrying that embryo. So we were all right, but we weren't exceptional. And so I was always kind of looking for things that could push that up and that could tweak that around or make that better. So I had tested and tried a whole series of different approaches to keeping mineral to the cows or keeping supplement to the cows, different tubs, different programs. I had a couple of different just friends and neighbors, colleagues within the industry that said, hey, you ought to try this, it works. And I thought, well, I've had a lot of people tell me a tub works when they're gonna make $1 selling it. This was one that it came direct referral basis from people that didn't stand to gain a thing. So we were jumping into it in the fall. And we breed heavy in December, January, going to calf in the fall. And so for us, the biggest thing was that, yeah, right away, we weren't seeing repeat heats, which is always at first, that means one of 2 things. Your cows are either pregnant or they're anestrus. So at first you're like, I hope we're not anestrus, because there's not very many repeats here. And so having those days going into that first breeding season with Rio, and that you're hearing preg, that's a pretty exciting thing. Initially, we were more 50-60%, and then we'd have jumped up pushing 80%, 78 to 80% in a lot of cases on first service AI. That's worth a lot. That's worth a pile. If she just falls out entirely, she's still just a pound cow, so maybe she's worth $2,000. If she stays bred and stays in the system, she's worth at least $6,000. That's a $4,000 per head spread, jumping from 60 to jumping to 80, so it's almost 20%. Then we'd be breeding 100 of them in a year. You add another 20 heifers, and you're picking up a $4,000 premium, so you'd be 80 grand. That'd be what you'd be looking at there. That's just the first calf heifers, which is 1/4 of the animals. If it didn't make money, I wouldn't be doing it. You do notice right away just the condition in the cattle. They'll hold a little more flesh. They'll slick out a little better. They look slick. They look glossy. They look content. We went over to free choice feed. Actually, the same year we went to Rio. A real concern for me was, are we going to just plow through hay, right? Or is it going to be these cows are just going to overeat? They do eat more. Don't get me wrong. They do eat more on a free choice basis, but it wasn't drastically more like I thought it might have been. And I do feel like they were able to utilize the feed really, really well. So even though we weren't dumping out any exceptional quality anything, it was just plenty of it. Cows are remarkably good at taking care of themselves if you'll give them the right tools. So with a bale of feed, Rio, and water there, like, if they have those things, they'll breed. And it's not a real scientific answer, but it doesn't have to be. Like, if those things are in place, I know they'll breed. I know if they breed, I know I make money. I know if I make money, I pay my bills, and I get to spend my life here chasing cows, which is the goal. We have logged the highest weaning weights we've ever recorded since swapping to Riomax. Our all-time record, I mean, we had a calf come in at 860 pounds at 7 months of age with no creep feed through an Idaho winter, Now, granted, that's our number 1 all-time, and that's a Charolais calf, and he was bred for it. And I mean, we just weaned an Akushi calf at 738 pounds, which that's just feeder alfalfa, and they're fighting cows for it. I'm not necessarily one that I'm selling the pay weight itself. I'm not selling weanling calves by the pound. What I am selling is to people who are. And so if they ask me, hey, I need a bull that I know can increase weaning weight, I can tell them, look, take these genetics that I offer for sale, put it together with some decent feed and a tub of Rio, and this is what comes out the tail end. The first year's worth we bought, it was within a week of when it was time to buy the next year's worth of Rio. So the consumption is spot on. I mean, they have free choice access to it all the time. If they wanted to eat me out of house and home, they could. The price makes sense. The labor savings, there's value there. And then for me, like I mentioned, it just kind of idiot-proofs it, which I kind of need. Like, I haven't dug through the label. I don't really intend to dig through the label. I just know that if I put out Rio, feed, and water, that cows breed and calves wean heavy, and those things pay bills.